Oh god. I hit record and my nose went for a second. Just classic me. Anyway, so why was I have not done the marquee thing in years. There's nothing written back here. That thing is like underneath the, so anyway, so invisible sign. I saw the other day this movie called No One Will Save You. It's currently on Hulu. And it's a pretty decent kind of like spooky kind of, I guess it's considered horror, like sci-fi horror kind of thing. I really enjoyed it. How long is the movie? Like a little over an hour or so. Like it's an hour and a half. It's something like that, you know. I don't know. Like part of me is like, how much do I go into without kind of giving away? So all I like knew about it was that there was something alien related, and then it was just kind of like person lives out in the middle of nowhere kind of stuff. So you're kind of like, okay, cool. Um, so it's like, okay, aliens live out in the middle of nowhere kind of stuff, and then it's just like, fine, give me a movie, you know. I guess. Uh, ugh. Anyway, um, I was like, is it really a spoiler? I mean, yeah. Anyway, I'll guess I'll go into spoiler for that, but I don't know what else to say. So I enjoyed the movie. I gave it like 4 stars. You know, um, go watch it if you really like weird alien stuff. If you like, um, not it's not really like a slow burn. I was gonna say if you really like movies you like to watch, like if you like things that you see and you enjoy seeing them, like what I don't do these videos for a bit and then I suddenly don't know how to talk. Sorry, I'm like, what the? I don't care about Tracy Ellis Ross's fucking Etsy. God damn fucking Etsy. Anyway, I'm gonna go into spoilers because I'm losing my mind already. Okay, 1, 2, 3, spoilers. So, um, yeah. So the reason why I didn't want to say this in the normal part and put in the spoiler part is because this is like kind of how I found out about it, which made it more interesting. So the movie has like no dialogue. There's ugh, like 10 words spoken in the entire movie, you know, but the whole time there's no dialogue, which I love. I love that it's just visual and it's just context clues, you know, none of this like weird like exposition like, oh brother, you're my brother, have a drink, brother, you know, none of that fucking shit happening. And it's just like, you know, it just stuff happens, you're watching it and you're able to just like figure things out, like I said, context clues, all that shit, and you know, aliens. But yeah, so like the first like full sentence, because you hear like, huh, what, hey, you know, like that kind of stuff throughout the movie, but the first full ass sentence that is said in the movie happens at like an hour into the movie, where someone's like, hey, so and so, what, like a full ass like, you know, sentence. um Anyway, so it's about this like young woman played by, what's her name, Caitlin Denver Telver. She was in Booksmart and Short Term 12, like, you know, those movies. Um, and you know, she just kind of like lives in this great home, and she's a seamstress, and she's got a whole ass house. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I have a whole ass house, but it's like, you know, not to myself anymore. And you know, I mean, like I made that sounds like I bought a house, you know, and not that like my dad died. Rip. It's terrible. I'm making jokes about that old man. Rip-a-rooney. Anyway, so, whatchamacallit. So she's like making stuff, and at first it has like this weird vibe where you're like, is this taking place in like the 60s? Because it has like that kind of vibe where like, oh, this is old. She's using like an old sewing machine, and you know, like she's mailing stuff. But then you notice like she has like a flat screen TV, and you're like, you know, like you never see her with like a phone or a computer. She sells a rotary phone in the house, and you're like, wow, girl. landline, and she drives like a pretty old car. Again, like the only modern tech in her house is that flat screen TV. Everything else is just like it's like what like your parents left over for you. I mean, believe me, I've had to clear a lot of that shit out of this house. Oh my god, this looks horrible this way. That's why it's only one way. Anyway, so so yeah, she like mails off her like dresses and whatever not. And whenever she's in town, whenever she's like not in her home that's like outside of town, whenever she's in town, you just see everyone's like they're just like this kind of like it's her kind of look. You're like, damn. And she has like a like when she's like in town, like she like has her sunglasses on, and she's just like, I just gotta mail this thing. You can tell she's very frazzled. And you're like, okay, trying to figure things out. And then whatchamacallit, like she gets home, she's just trying to live her life fine. Everyone else in town looks like they're trying to live their life as well, but they seem to not like her. And she's writing these letters to someone named Maud. It's kind of stuff like, hey, like kind of pen pally kind of stuff. Again, it's something where you're like, okay, she's not emailing. There's no like computer. There's no like further tech. I mean, there probably was something in the background that I probably missed. But again, she's writing letters, all that stuff. You're like, sure, why not? You see that, she goes to a cemetery and you're like, okay, this is probably her mom's grave because it's like, so and so, daughter of Bryn. So then you're like, that's probably her name is Bryn. I mean, later on you find out because she goes in her room and it says like Brinny's lair or whatever. Something. And you're like, okay, that is her name. And so you're just like, all right. And you just see again, she's writing these letters to someone named Maud, and she like closes up, and you're like, okay. But you notice it's not like address. It just says Maud, and then you're just like, okay. You're like, she's just gonna like put it in someone's mailbox. You're like, all right, you're like, whatever, right? You're just like, okay, whatever. People write letters. Then you're like, maybe she's like an adult who's got like a weird brain thing, and she's got like an imaginary friend. Who fucking knows? But that goes out the window when aliens happen. Because I love how it's just like no dialogue, just kind of weird stuff you're trying to figure out, and then suddenly it's like at night. Like suddenly it's a movie like directed by what's his name? Pontos, but yeah, the guy who did like Mandy and Beyond the Black Rainbow. Like suddenly it's got that sound design and that kind of color scheme, and you're like, what the fuck? And they're just like she wakes up and then like her front door's open, but she's just standing at the top of the steps. And in my head, I'm just more of like, oh, I would just like run to close the door, lock it, and then inspect the house, be like, who the fuck is it? Blah! I mean, then again, that's just me. I have that kind of like, who the fuck is it? That kind of stuff. Because, I'm that bitch. But like, okay, she looks like she probably is not gonna fight everyone in the world like me, you know? And I mean, it's smart that she didn't because she's standing there and then you see like there's like glass or whatever and you see something moving, you're like, what the fuck is that? I know, aliens. We've established that. I like the alien designs in this movie because they're like the old school kind of like, Bulbasaur, the X-Files kind of thing. I like that they didn't try to like reinvent the wheel and try to make it a specific new type of alien. Didn't, it wasn't like the specific you know what I mean? It's just like it's aliens, it's what we all know what aliens look like kind of stuff. Cool, awesome, whatever, right? And there's just this alien, and part of me is like, I don't know. Like I think if I saw an alien, I would just be like, oh, what's up? Like, right? But, I get it. She's scared. It also has, like, telekinesis, so it's, like, moving shit, and she's like, like, her fridge is, oh my gosh, she's got, like, an old-ass fridge. It's, like, one of those, like, lead-line ones. Again, everything in her house is old. The fridge door is, like opening and closing and all that stuff. And then, she's trying to run away from it. She doesn't know if that's trying to kill her. She's like, I gotta protect myself. It's, like, all this stuff where you're like, what's going on? Who knows? No one fucking knows, because there's no dialogue. It's just, alien stuff happening. And she ends up defending herself from the alien at one point by just like taking a thing and just like she's got good aim. They'll come into later. And I was just like, damn, and it's like and just on the floor, and she's like, well, okay. And then she goes back to bed and wakes up the next day like, this is fine, just put a blanket over it, you know. Um, the next day she goes, um, I think she first goes to the cemetery, or the cemetery happened before. Anyway, she had gone to the cemetery, and then that's when you kind of realize, oh, the person Maud that she's been writing letters to is most likely a friend, because she's at the cemetery. There's a grave for Maud, blah blah blah, last name, and then you see like the years, and you're like, oh, that's really young. You know, you're like, that's a child. You're like, oh shit. You're like, okay, establishing childhood friends. Also, like during the alien thing, she's holding like a picture frame, and it's like her and the person, most likely Maud, you know, when they're little, and there's a lot of that. So you realize, okay, she's writing letters to her dead friend. Like, all right, putting the pieces together, context clues, getting it, you know. Anyway, the next day she goes to like the police or something. Okay, she goes back into town. Everyone's just like looking at her again, like the fuck, like you know, that kind of stuff. Um, and she goes to the police station, and then she gets there, and it's just like she's just stunned. And at first I was like, what is going on? I don't get it. And there's like a man and a woman, and it's just like they're looking at her, she's looking at them, and then you get a close up of the the cop's like name tag, and I kind of was like, huh? For a second, it didn't dawn on me. I literally was just like, I was like, wait, there's something, you know. Good thing it's on Hulu, and I was like, and I wasn't at like the theater or something for this because I would have been lost. Um, but I rewound for a second, and that's Maud's parents. Again, context clues, because like the last name is the chief, sheriff, whatever, cop, you know, and most likely the mom because they're together. And then the mom of the dead girl, dead friend, spits in her face, just whoosh, and you're like, damn, like you spit in the bitch's face. I'm like, what happened? That the town hates her, the parents, like people just look at her like, it's you, like it's like, yo, and the woman spits at her. So she leaves and she's like, fuck it. She tries to figure out, like, you know, like what do I do with like the alien thing. In the evening, more alien come to like the dead alien out kind of stuff, and it's just kind of like, what the oh, she tries to like skip town, because she's like, you could tell she's like, all right, I got spat on. And then while she's trying to skip town, I think the mailman, from earlier in the movie, you see him. That's also where you realize it's not taking place back in the day, besides the flat screen, is that the mail truck is very like modern mail truck, and the guy is just kind of like, I think he had like, did he have like a phone, something, but he was just kind of like throwing the package, and he's like, thank you, woo, you know. Anyway, so the I think the mail carrier, then so you see on his neck, it's like undulates, and then he's like like at her, and she's like, ah, and again, no one's speaking a word of any dialogue. It's just, huh, what, a lot of that happening. Anyway, she gets home, that's when the alien is all that stuff, and it's just like a lot of this like takeover shit, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? You know, you're like, oh my god, like you're just in for, by then you're just so in for the ride. You're like, fuck it. Again, she's like, they want to abduct her and all that stuff, and it's like all this like weird shit. And then like then you see, so then there's like, so then there was kind of like a baby size, you know, alien, like a child size alien, and I was like, what the fuck? And then there was like a really tall, kind of almost spider looking alien. I was like, ah, you know, it was just like all this like weird shit happened, like cars on fire, you know, like the fuck, you know, and you're like, okay, sure. Anyway, so like they end up like trying to like, oh, they end up putting like a thing in her like mouth or something, and then she kind of like experiences, that's an hour in when finally dialogue happens where the friend is like, Maud or Bryn or whatever, blah blah blah, full line of dialogue, and then she's like, huh, and it's trying to be like, oh, her friend is still alive, and da da da, but then she was like, nope, you know, she's like, nope, give me reality, as horrible as it is. And then through like, so the aliens end up abducting her, and they're like, there's like a bunch of them, they're like examining her like a surgery theater kind of thing, and they notice like her trauma, and you learn why the town hates her is that when she was young, remember I said she got good aim, when she was little, her and her friend had an argument, and then she falls to the ground, grabs a rock, and just beams it on her friend's head. Again, she's got great aim. Just beams it her and ends up killing her friend. It's like, oh my god, that's why this fucking dust. That's why this small town. That's why the parents like hate her, even though she's a kid. You know she didn't mean it, so you know she obviously wasn't charged with something because she's a kid. You know, so it's like they don't feel like justice was made because she's still able to live. The other girl's dead. Yeah, they put her. Oh my god, my face is itchy all of a sudden. So it's like all this, like, oh my god, so you understand the story more. And I love that the aliens, like, notice that she's so mentally ill and so traumatized that they decided not to abduct her, decided not to, like, body snatch her. Like, you know, from what you can tell, obviously the mail carrier got it, so you're thinking other people in the town probably, you know, she's not the only one. She's probably the last one, you know? And I just love that. Like, the aliens were just like, girl, boop, like, you know, like, E.T., like, boop, and then, like, reading her, and they're like, oh, this bitch is fucked up. We are not taking over that. We are not taking over that. So, she comes back down to Earth, and then, like, you know, the next day kind of thing, you can tell everyone else in the town is taken over because you see the undulating of that stuff, but they're all like, hi, hey. And so it went from like her being like dreary and just kind of to being like, hey, what's up? Like, it's all like, woo, everything is fine. You know, then she's like at night and they're like having a thing where there's like, they're dancing and she's smiling and everyone's an alien and she gets to like live like this happy, fulfilled life. And it's very weird. And I very much enjoyed the movie because it is so weird. And it is like, I don't know if this is the what they thought to do with the movie, but it is like a weird to kind of take on like grief and understanding and moving on kind of stuff. I do like when movies like, you know, show like something like terrible, like grief and stuff, and then see the process in a different way and you know, all that stuff. I like that it's not just like I'm, you know, like eating a pint of ice cream, you know, crying, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, it's just like it's aliens come and they go, bitch, you fucked up. But what we're gonna do, right, to help you out, because you that fucked up, we're gonna take over everyone else's body. And we're gonna all be fucking good. We're gonna be good. You know? You're gonna live in this town and you're gonna enjoy this party and dance with everyone and we'll all be smiling at the end of the day and you'll be smiling. It's fine. Who cares about the other people? They were mean to you and all that stuff and that woman spat on you, so you good. You know? I just thought that was like really interesting, you know, that's how like the movie went, you know? It was just like, oh, okay. And it was just like, it's weird, you know. Anytime I really like a movie, it's really weird. We need that. We need to keep the weirdness up. Um like, I love the whole idea of no dialogue, little to no dialogue. I love that, you know, you just watched it and you just figured it out, you know. And I feel like if there was dialogue, it would just be like a lot of movies have dumb dialogue. Where it's like, what's that? What's there? No, man, you gotta believe me. It's like, oh my god, like, you get so sick of. Do you get sick of writing that like over and over again, man? Like, back in the day when I wanted to like do small like films, shorts, and all that stuff, there were a lot of things where I would like think of a concept like kind of not exactly like aliens or something like that, but something where like, oh, I want this and this to happen, and then I was like, okay, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just do it without dialogue, and then like people told me like you have to have dialogue, and I try to write dialogue and it'd be very much like, how do people talk, you know, and I do like that they were just like, no, let's forego that and just show you, you know, kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed this movie. Um, the what's her name who plays the lead? She did a really great job. Like other movies she's done, I've enjoyed her with. Again, I love the alien designs. I mean, like obviously there's a few points where you're like, this is obviously it's CGI, but there's some points where it's like, ooh, this is very like, you know, ones and zeros. But again, it's fine. I was fine with it. I really enjoyed it. You know, I feel like if Aliens also came down and took a look at this, maybe that's why I don't have an abduction story like other people tend to have those stories, because they were just like, oh no, like they don't even get close enough to like boop me on the head. They just get close enough, and then like my like severely mentally ill vibes just beam off of me, and it's like, now, you know, where it's like they don't want to take over but dogs love me, you know, that kind of stuff, you know. So whatever. Anyway, done talking about it. I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, it's on Hulu. I like it. No one will save you, but apparently aliens will. I guess, you know. Sure.